Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to World this morning. I am Hajra Sati, your host, and unfortunately Shahzad couldn't join in, so I asked a very talented and very intellectual friend of mine to please fill in, and he happens to be Jawad Ahmed Hami. Assalamu alaikum, Jawad. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to fill in the shoes of Shahzad Khan, the one and only, of course. Right. He's been doing a wonderful job over the years, and today I've got the chance to be sitting at its place, and hopefully I'll be filling in his shoes very
Jawad,
well.
We had the Independence Day yesterday. It was 75th, anniversary of Pakistan. And, I feel so proud of being a Pakistani because, there's so much that we have accomplished. Of course, there is a lot that we can do to improve our country, to, make us a better selves of ourselves so we can contribute socially and responsibly to our country. But, there are quite a few things that I would really like to, recount them, that I'm so proud being a Pakistani. So number one is that, of course, we made a nuclear bomb. We are a very small nation when it comes to that because, it's been 75 years since we got the independence. And moreover, that I think that we are the only country that fought and won the war on terror, actually, and a lot of other countries actually failed to do so. Of course, our country demanded a lot of bloodshed, and I think the sacrifice and our country's freedom always demands blood when it comes to that. And the second thing is that we have been, so great, and I'm so proud as a Pakistani that, we have accommodated Afghan refugees. Indeed. And not just as a second class or third class citizen, but, as actually our brethren, an Islamic brethren who came from an impoverished background. Of course, we do not have that much resources, but I think we rehabilitated them and we were kind to them. And a lot of, Western countries actually, failed to re-accommodate them when it comes to that, right? So Shahzad, pardon me because, I'm in a habit of calling
these are very two important points you've just mentioned as far as beating the enemies, especially the terrorists in the war on terror, being the front line ally in the war on terror. It was a phenomenal job done by Pakistan. Of course, in the last 75 years, Pakistan's security, the air defenses, the land defenses, and even the sea defenses have been impregnable by all the armed forces of Pakistan. So commendable job to all the armed forces and the soldiers and the officers who've laid down their lives for the sanctity and the defense of this motherland.
So it's not just the armed forces that are making us proud, it's also all of the people, that are contributing towards the nation building in the different capacities for the nation building purposes. So, moving on to a very favorite segment of mine, which is the news segment. So Jawad, we had Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif telephone call with His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister, and also the Defense Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. During a telephone call, the Crown Prince also conveyed best wishes for the continued progress, prosperity and development of Pakistan. Prime Minister conveyed his deep respects to the custodian of the two holy mosques, His Majesty King Salman bin Abdul Aziz.
Indeed, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have long-standing brotherly, fraternal relations, and indeed this call holds a significance between Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mohammed Shehbaz Sharif, and the Crown Prince, His Excellency.
That's true. And of course, we have the religious ties, we have the spiritual ties, political, economic and whatnot, and that they're definitely a Muslim country. So, we hold them in very high importance, in high esteem, and of course, they were always here to help us out in our dire need. So moving on to the weather. So Jawad, it was a very, lovely weather yesterday, but there was...
especially when we talk about the twin cities of Islamabad and Rawalpindi. But of course, this weather pattern has wreaked havoc in southern parts of the country, especially when we talk about Balochistan, which has been badly hit by this torrential rain spell. And when we talk about the lower Sindh as well, there are a lot of areas which have been affected by this torrential rain spell. Up in the north as well, and down in Punjab, in central Punjab as well, we've seen the rivers overflowing and the dams.
Of course, and the Met Office has predicted more torrential rains in the Sindh, Balochistan and southern Punjab in the coming days. In a weather advisory, the Met Office informed that a depression has developed in the Arabian Sea, which is likely to move towards the west along the Makran coast. Due to this weather system, monsoon currents are continuously penetrating in the southern parts of the country. Another low pressure is likely to approach Sindh on Tuesday. I think because of the climate change, we have a very prolonged, sessions of this monsoon rains, because I think after 15th of August, monsoon season ceased to exist. But, because of our human manufactured climate change, I think Pakistan is one of the most hardest hit country.
Exactly, but Pakistan has to pay the price of something true. Pakistan never did, because Pakistan is the least emitter of the carbon
to us, yes.
In the world. But because of certain countries in this region who are very high emitters of carbon, Pakistan has to pay the price. And the glaciers up in the north are melting at a rapid pace, and that is casting a big threat to the Pakistan survival. And the water reservoirs are also depleting at a very fast pace as well.
And a very, diligent and a very lovely climate change minister, Ms. Sherry Rahman, also, mentioned, especially in the conference in the Berlin, and she said that there is no compensation for such kind of, the disaster that has wreaked havoc in our country. And that is very concerning to a country like Pakistan, because I think we are the most affected by that. So now moving on to the Independence Day celebration, and Jawad, indeed, it was the 75th anniversary of Pakistan.
Loads of ceremonies arranged yesterday, and it was extravagant and spectacular, magnificent display of all the emotions that we've got.
So on 75th Independence Day of Pakistan, a grand Jasn-e-Azadi event was organized by the Nifty Safar Institute of Arts and Designing. The competition arranged by the Nifty Safar included exciting activities like singing competition, quiz competition, departments competition, and interactive sessions with the legendary artists. At the Grand Awards ceremony, senior and professional guests awarded the students with the certifications. Talented young students showed up beautiful displays in different departments such as photography, textile designing, fashion designing, graphic designing, fine arts, and media departments. Events like these motivates and encourages the youth to do better, not only for themselves but for the country as well. That is really true. And Jawad, we have seen such a massive celebrations, when it comes to that. Especially you've seen that in the D-Talk. Did you witness that?
Yeah, it was, as I already mentioned, it was an extravagant show, phenomenal show of our emotions when we were celebrating the 75 years of our independence. It's indeed the Diamond Jubilee, and it was a wonderful event that you just mentioned. It described.
And I think it was also very wonderful because our senior producer was also the chief guest there, and he never failed to amaze me, especially when it comes to his guest choice, because it is really amazing, and he distributed the gift prizes to that. And this is
besides him, there were a lot of other big names, big artists who were present over there in this particular event, and they graced the occasion as well.
And I think we need to promote such kind of activities, because such kind of activities project the soft power, and also, as Hillary Clinton says, the smart power of the country when it comes to that. So, Jawad, they're not just, such kind of people who are making us proud. There are also other people, the expat Pakistanis who are serving or living in the West, who are making us proud, through their contribution, not just to their host countries, but also to the countries of their living. So one such guest, we have invited him to the studio, and who has made us so much proud, with his contributions. And just because, he is up there in a very high post, and he's contributing so much to the society there and to our society also. So I'm very honored, to be, that he has graced us with his presence here in the studio. And he happens to be Dr. Abdul Ghafoor M.Bachani Saab. He is also director at Johns Hopkins University. He's the heading the International Injury Research Unit. And not just that, but he's also the alumni of that university. And I'm really, very impressed by his credentials, because, Pakistanis are always making us proud. So, Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much, for coming to our show.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you for having me on this show.
It's great to have you. Thank you very much for taking time out. So, jumping straight into the discussion. So, the area of the work that you are in, would you like to elaborate for our viewers a little in detail? What does this rehabilitation means, and how effective it happens to be for any certain individual?
And why do we need to talk about it in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So no, thanks again for having me. Just by way of introduction, as you said, My name is M.Bachani. I am based at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I'm an associate professor there in international health. And I direct this center that's focused on injuries, disability, and rehabilitation. When we talk about rehabilitation, it's important to understand that rehabilitation is a set of services within the spectrum of health services that are geared to enhance functioning, to restore functioning of individuals to levels at which we expect individuals to function, to be able to be productive members of society, to be able to live a healthy life and participate in society, participate in social events, take care of their families, participate in other family activities, as well as economically productive activities. And so that's the angle through which we approach rehabilitation. And why rehabilitation is important, why are we talking about it at this point in time is, as we've gotten better in reducing mortality around the world, people are living longer. Right. And non-communicable diseases, chronic conditions are becoming more prominent. People are living longer with consequences of conditions. There's an increase in injuries, there's an increase in conflict around the world. And so naturally there's a need for us to focus on enabling people to lead a healthy life that's more productive.
And with ease.
And with ease.
Exactly, right. Because of the consequences of certain conditions they've just mentioned, the difficulties for them are increased many-fold. Yeah. So the kind of services that you people are giving is basically focused on giving them an ease for the rest of their lives.
Right, and I really wanted to ask you, sir, since by the virtue of your office, you are influencing such a good change, in our society too, and especially in America too. So why do people often overlook the rehabilitation, and why is it even important to talk about it?
Is it even overlooked?
So yes,
what are the findings?
It's great. It's a great question, and it is indeed overlooked. Right. Rehabilitation has always been the sort of a stepchild when it comes to health services within the health system. We've almost always traditionally, by virtue of the needs, focused on reducing infectious diseases, reducing mortality, etc. And it's all good. We've reduced the number of people who are dying of conditions that are preventable, but we also need to now focus on making sure people are leading healthy, productive lives, and that's where functioning comes in. Rehabilitation services have often been standalone services, mostly available in large urban settings, right, in specialized hospitals. But they don't have to be that way. Okay. Most of the people who need rehabilitation are in the community. They don't have access to these services in the community. And what we're trying to do with the Learning, Acting, and Building for Rehabilitation in Health Systems project that's funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development is to try and see how we can integrate rehabilitation services as core services within the health system and bring them closer to where people are who need them.
Right.
So is it specifically for a certain community of people or a certain people who have got certain conditions, or is it across the board?
It's across the board. When we talk about rehabilitation, we're talking about rehabilitation services across the board. What we will be doing with this project is we're working with key stakeholders within government and outside government as well, because there's a role for the private sector here, and there's a role for the government. There's government services, there's a health system here, and we need to see how we can better integrate rehabilitation as key pieces or parts of the health system as other services are. So vaccinations, immunizations, etc. are core services, maternal and child health. Right. Embed rehabilitation services in there so that in addition to all those, we are working on understanding what the needs are of individuals and provide those services.
Right. So, sir, when it comes to the public health sector, it's not that much evolved as it is in the, America or in the West in general, right? So a lot of, my friends, who were studying with me, especially when it comes to the medical, they wanted to be an MBBS doctor, right? I do feel that the rehabilitation sector is somewhat neglected when it comes to the medical services in Pakistan. Yeah. So what do you have to say? Do you see a good future when it comes to the rehabilitation services in Pakistan for the medical students?
So again, it's partly cultural, and it's partly right. A function of the way the system is organized, right? So when I mean cultural, in our culture, you either become a doctor or an engineer.
Right,
and that's what's prioritized,
so that's
right?
perhaps because of the economic dividends at the end
Because
of
of the
day.
economic dividends
So
at the end.
what about this particular field?
Right. And so what we need to do is we need to develop this as a profession. We need to work on all these allied health professions and make sure they get as much prominence as well. When it comes to rehabilitation professions, there's no, well, there are a lot of programs that train physical therapists, occupational therapists, etc. There's a lot of people who do graduate from these schools, but unfortunately aren't able to find jobs. The other thing is there's not enough regulation when it comes to it. Anyone can claim I'm a physiotherapist and perform services. Unfortunately, doing more harm than good in those cases.
The quack doctor especially,
yeah, and so working on a system, and there's several bills in the provincial assemblies right now, I believe in 2 or 3 provincial assemblies that are seeking to establish some accreditation mechanism where physical therapists, occupational therapists are licensed and regulated to provide some more prominence to that profession, to basically provide a pathway towards ensuring quality of services that are provided, etc. And then also then we need to work on, when we talk about a systems level change, we need to work at the level of the system and ensure that when people are graduating from these programs, we have a pathway for them to be economically productive, to contribute to society.
That's true.
Many of our provinces here have positions within the public health system for physical therapists, etc., but those are never recruited.
Right.
They're never announced, and recruitment doesn't happen. There's funding allocated to it.
Right.
So we want to see how we can work with the system to make sure that people can be employed in these positions.
Dr. Bachani, there are 2 different things that we just mentioned. If I connect to both of those things, it gives us a very interesting scenario when we talk about culture, especially in the far-flung areas here in Pakistan.
Right.
And then you talk about quacks. Now, in far-flung areas, there are certain practitioners whom the people believe in very much, and they've been serving people of that particular area for years and years.
Right.
So they've got a certain belief in them. So in order to target those people in far-flung areas who've got the belief in a certain quack who's been practicing for years and years, and he's been giving remedies to people. So is there any sort of a scenario that your organization could take those practitioners on board and train them properly?
And also, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you, but when it comes to, especially the US aid and especially, the Western funded, the organization, the NGOs that are working here, there's certain, stigma attached to them. There's a trust deficit, especially when it comes to the local communities. So it's a really, hard job convincing people out there, that, we're actually working for your betterment and for your good. How do you, plan to address this sort of stigma too, and that too, Jawad's question?
Yeah, so there's 2 aspects of it, right? We've talked about the supply side. We need to talk about the demand side as well. We need to talk about, people needing to understand that rehabilitation services are beneficial to them. Usually, we don't end up going to seek these services unless it's really bad,
right?
Unless in extreme cases. But when we seek these services, when we understand the need for these services and seek them, they're eventually beneficial to us. So we will need to work with the communities. We will need to work to change those patterns of thinking and those practices that have been happening for a long time now. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a process. There needs to be a paradigm shift that happens both at the supply level and the demand level as well.
Right.
So we need to work on both ends. We need to make sure we're educating the public that these are services that are important for you. They'll help you, and they're available. That we know they're available. If you go to the health center, there are people who will be able to help identify your needs and be able to meet your needs.
So how much are the people at the top level, when your organization works over here in Pakistan, are receptive of this idea in particular?
So we're at a really good time when it comes to rehabilitation and the things that we're talking about, because there's a global movement as well. The Rehabilitation 2030 movement that's championed by the WHO, that's led by the WHO, the World Health Organization, who are developing tools, frameworks, and working with country governments to be able to translate them into, contextually translate them to be implemented in country. When it comes to Pakistan, Pakistan has been one of the leaders in this area. The government of Pakistan sponsored the World Health Assembly resolution on assistive technologies a couple of years ago. So we are getting traction at higher levels and mid levels and lower levels. What we need to do is just bring everyone together, work on looking at how we can improve the system, how we can integrate these services more centrally within the system.
And sir, when it comes, because you are also associated with academia, you are the also the director of the Johns Hopkins University, and especially when it comes to the International Injury Research Unit, right? So you are more aware with the academic trends, which are prevalent in this field. So would you like to shed some lights when it comes to the academic trends on the rehabilitation?
Would you mind elaborating on that?
Okay. So basically, you're an academic, right? You're a professor, and you're more aware with what are the academic trends when it comes to that. What are the medical trends? The new trends which are in this field. So, do you want to elaborate on that when it comes to the rehabilitation?
Yeah. So when it comes to rehabilitation, as I said earlier, because of the change in the evolving patterns of disease and conditions around the world, as we're moving towards reducing infectious diseases, reducing mortality, people are living longer. There's increased motorization happening in many of our countries. There's a lot of motorcycles coming in many of our countries. There's a lot more injuries, road traffic injuries happening. People will need rehabilitation. There's a lot more people who are living towards older ages in life, and they need different kinds of rehabilitation. There's kids who are engaged in different activities. They have falls, other injuries. They need different kinds of rehabilitation. So what we need to look at is across the spectrum, the continuum of care across the spectrum, taking a life course approach, knowing full well that the rehabilitation that a child needs will be different from rehabilitation that an adolescent needs to a young adult, to an older adult, and make sure that we're planning our services so that we're able to meet all these needs.
Right. So what is the last message that you would like to give to our audience, especially when it comes to the rehabilitation trends? So this is your camera, please go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you again for having me here. And what I would like to say is that when it comes to rehabilitation services are important. They're able to help us improve our functioning, live a more productive life, both economically and socially productive as well. And one of the things that we're going to be working with local stakeholders here as part of this USAID funded activity that's learning, acting, and building for rehabilitation in health systems is to see how we can better integrate rehabilitation services within health systems and make them more available at all levels of care so that anyone who needs rehabilitation services has access to them and can benefit from them.
Right, wonderful. Thank you so much, for saying that. And as I was talking to his team behind the camera, and they were telling me about that rehabilitation is not just about going there and getting done with just one walk in there. It's a continuous process. You have to go there, you have to get the follow-ups, and this is how you are going to create a positive impact on your health, on your body, and on your the disease which you're trying to cure. And speaking of impact, Jawad, I'm sorry I'm cutting you. So impact is not just created by the public health, it's also the media industry that is creating a lot of impact on us, on our psyche, and it's the social media, which is the new normal, which is the new media that is also creating a lot of impact on us. So after, yes.
One very important thing, the people should start believing in the scientific methods and the scientific remedies rather than going to the quacks and becoming disabled or specially abled for the rest of their lives.
Or believing in the superstitions when it comes to that, right? So after a short break, we will be right back and we will be discussing about, the media industry and how does it impact us. back, and before going on to the break, we were talking about how media is impacting our society, how our drama industry is impacting our society. And Jawad, I become so proud, especially when I go out there and tell people that I'm working in the PTV, and they also take pride in our institution, and they said, oh, PTV produced such magnificent and great dramas. It was the golden age of the PTV, when they were producing dramas, and they were not just popular in Pakistan, they used to go out in so many countries, as far as to the South America. And I was really surprised. Okay, really, South America, because they have sort of a different culture than us, but that is the power of the mass culture.
We've got the global outreach,
That's
and
true.
we are the face of Pakistan.
That's
We're the
true.
state
That's
broadcasters,
true.
so
And
it's really indeed an honor to be the part of this grand organization.
That's
It's been
true.
working since long time, producing wonderfully magnificent dramas. And when we talk about the impact of media, when it comes to the motion pictures, it has got a humongous impact on the lives of the people, and people try to follow whatever is being displayed in front of them on their TV screens. And now social media, the digital platforms have also taken their place, but the impact of filmmaking and the motion picture still remains there.
That's very true. And especially our such golden dramas like Tanhaiyan, like there's so many others, Alpha Bravo Charlie, they have created such a tremendous impact, when it comes to the drama industry and the impact on the society, and then the way they used to produce the pronunciation of the actors. They were such a magnificent.
She used to cater to the demand of the kids also,
and
lots of cartoons also.
Right. So to talk about more about how drama industry is creating an impact, we have a wonderful guest in our studio who happens to be Shahryar Ali. He is also an actor and also filmmaker, and he has very humble personality because he has bagged 3 gold medals, and he specifically asked me not to talk about it. And I said, why? It's a big achievement, and his mother was also supporting me when it comes to that. And not just that, he has also bagged the first place in the fiction category in a film called Sarafanama, and that was a contest that was displayed by the ISPR, and he participated in that. So we want to welcome Shahryar. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Okay, so you want to talk about Sarafanama. What was the film about, and did you directed it, or were you an actor in that? Please, tell us about the journey.
I didn't direct Sarafanama. I acted in it. It was directed by Amir Khan Milazai. He's a very nice senior of mine.
Okay.
And he trusted me with the performance, and I'm grateful that he did.
Right. And what did you play? What was the film about?
Well, the film was about breaking the stereotypes that are often, about the Balochistan side of Pakistan. People don't usually, they're a little skeptical to visit that side because they've heard things. Right? So this was about breaking those stereotypes. It's about 2 guys, they go on a road trip, and they explore Balochistan because they have to go for a work trip, but then it turns into a more finding themselves journey.
Okay.
Yeah. Indeed, lots of scenic places over there in Balochistan.
It is so beautiful.
You went over there for the filming of that particular Sarafanama, right?
Yeah, we stayed in Quetta, and we traveled around, and we were mostly in Quetta, but the whole route we took a very long journey because we were stopping and shooting in the middle, but it was so beautiful, and everyone was so hospitable.
So what's that unique thing that you experienced over there in Balochistan during your stay there?
I loved the food so much. It was just absolutely amazing. I would just eat rosh every day.
What is the signature dish from that area?
Rosh, landhi, I had the best time. I ended up putting on some weight.
One unique thing about Balochistan is, Jawad, that the food, that they roast over there, the goats or the animals, they are fed actually on the herbs which are there. It's not an artificial sort of a food, which is put in front of them, just for the sake of the commercial purposes. So the food is really healthy and really good, and it has a lot of, so herb has a lot of medicinal value, and especially when the animal is eating that, so that sort of medicinal values goes into that animal. So the meat is really good when it comes to that,
so,
right?
When we talk about coming back to that point, the Sarafanama, has it already been launched, or is it in the process of completely making?
It's been launched. It was a submission in ISPR's festival in NASF, National Amateur Film Festival, and it won first place in fiction over there. and that was a huge honor for us. And then it was uploaded on YouTube, and people really enjoyed it. They loved it.
Right, and not just that, so there's also a drama, which featured on the PTV Home on 11th of August, right?
Yes.
So you want to talk about it, you were an actor there, or you were a director there, what sort of the role you had, and whatever your experience when it comes to that?
I acted and I played the lead, which was surprising for me.
Okay, why is that though?
That's quite an honor.
It is, it's a huge honor, and to play for like PTV.
That's true.
And like I
So what was the story about it? Can you tell us
Is
a bit
it a
about
serial
it?
or?
It's a telefilm.
Okay.
It's a
It's a telefilm. It aired on the 11th, and it's basically it's about this young guy who's a singer,
Right.
and he's just your average, not a care in the world. I mean, he has some cares in the world.
Right.
He's a philanthropist as well,
Right.
and he wants to write. He wants to write something for his country, but he can't find the lyrics. And then his grandfather, he tells him about what happened during partition and his story,
Right.
and he gets inspiration from that. And the grandfather even gives him the lyrics, something that he wrote,
Right.
and it ends up uniting like his family with another family,
That's wonderful.
long lost. So it's a really
Right,
wholesome
right.
story.
It's a theme, that goes
Yeah.
with the Wednesday also, right? So talking about, the drama industry of Pakistan, so do you think, especially, so in terms of production, we have improved when it comes to that, right? Especially, when you compare it with the golden age of the Pakistan's drama industry, where do you, place the values of the art dramas now, especially, when you compare them with the golden age of Pakistan television's dramas when it comes to that? So what are the big problems and do you think are there in the drama industry?
I'm trying to get work in dramas, so
Okay.
I don't know what to say. But no, I'm going to be honest. We do lack in a lot of places, and there is a lot of places where we can improve. I think the first and foremost for any media form is the writing. The writing is it's the meat and bones of the production, and as if your writing isn't strong, so no matter how strong your production is, your camera is, all of those things they're important, they're equally important, but they do come in secondary when it comes to writing. If your story has the power, then
the content does matter.
Exactly.
The script does matter. If you've got very strong script, so it does have an impact.
And there's a lot of criticism which is leveled onto the Pakistan's drama industry is that the scripts are not coming, they're not produced in very high quality, and they're not instilling the sort of the values that we are talking about Pakistani values. So there's a lot of Bichari Aurat syndrome in our dramas which is there. And so I used to watch a lot of dramas, but I have stopped watching it because I do feel that a lot of dramas are playing into one stereotype sort of a script, which is repeated again and again, and the bandwagon effect, which is very much present into our drama industry.
I think it also comes from from the childhood. You've got to think on different lines.
Right.
If you've got a different sort of a perspective about different issues, so you can actually come up with new and innovative ideas, and you can give them even the very topic that you've just mentioned. You can talk about in 100 different ways. So I think innovation that should be coming and thinking out of the box. That's very important.
It's not just that we have a dearth of the good script writing here. It's just I think that the big giants of the channels, they are not willing to take that sort of a risk because they feel that our audience like to watch such kind of things, and then they talk about the rating system. And I really wanted to talk about the rating system, and I want to deconstruct this concept of the rating system. Why is that so? Because when you talk about the PTV's golden age of the drama industry, you will see that those dramas were very much highly rated, so much so that our parents tell us that the roads used to get all clear because there was no one outside, and especially all of were jumbled in front of the screen to watch those dramas. But that impact has not been created in the modern day drama industry.
So one very important, at that time there used to be only PTV, a sole single screen, and everybody was looking forward to that only screen. Now we've got dozens of different drama channels, so there's a lot of stuff that is coming in. So I think the more the quantity, the quality is compromised as well.
That's true. That's true. And also, Jawad, there are a lot of streaming platforms, right? Especially the Netflix have propped up, and other platforms that have propped up. and that has definitely changing the landscape of the drama industry when it comes to that. So I would like to throw this question to my guest, so what do you think about the streaming platforms when it comes to that? How is it affecting or impacting our current drama industry when it comes to that?
Well, I would want to say first of all that I don't necessarily think that increasing quantity should mean a decrease in quality. We can have, there are so many niches, we can, create content for everyone, because there are so many different kinds of viewers of different kind of genres. And that is one of the good thing about streaming platforms. I mean, Netflix and all, these are the giants, and we don't really have very easy access to these platforms, but there are smaller platforms like recently Pictures TV, they made a web series, and I had, I know some people who worked in it. And we consume such content, but we don't consume such content locally because it's not produced locally. We would watch the same thing, but it's made by people in some other country, but we don't give our people the same opportunity to make those things because we're not ready to accept
is it because of the rapidly changing dynamics of the motion pictures industry around the world, and Pakistani industry not keeping a pace with that?
Yeah, because I think evolution
especially
is important.
when it comes to the equipment in particular.
Equipment as well, and skilled, improving on your skills, and like especially, again, I know I'm mentioning this over and over again, but writing. I feel like that's really important. Our whole industry is very fast paced, You write a script and you write it like this, it needs to be done in like a very short amount of time, but it's a time taking thing. I feel like more than production, time should be spent on pre-production to like perfect what you're gonna make. And then once you have that ready, then once you go into production.
It's basically the mixture and the congregation of lots of elements. Once you've got the good writing and you don't have that kind of visualization, you don't have those performers, and you don't have that equipment, the good writing doesn't serve.
Of course, these all go hand in hand. It's like a giant machine. Every little screw and bolt is important for the machine to function. If sound is important, your camera is important, each and every aspect of your film or your drama or whatever you're making, when it gels in together, then it makes a beautiful piece of work.
Synchronization, when we talk about ancient Greece, the time of Sophocles, when we talk about Oedipus Rex, everything was so synchronized. The chorus coming in, the script was so perfect. Whatever was being said by the performer.
And we still read it today, right?
Exactly.
It has been so many centuries.
And there were messages in those theaters. So the drama or the film that actually originates from there in order to highlight the pressing issues in the society.
Right, and especially, I wanted to talk about it. So I wanted to talk about your support system. So, artists are usually, especially, if you do not have good connections within the industry, they're struggling when it comes to that, right? And, especially when it comes to the economic things, so parents are like, beta aisi job karo jisse paise achhe mile tumhe, right? So they are worried about your economic prospects when it comes to that. So how supportive were your parents when it comes to you venturing into this field, because artists certainly do struggle.
I guess there are a lot of and besides economic dividends, there are a lot of dividends. You appear on the screen, you become celebrity as well. I mean, there are a lot of dividends. How can you say there are not economic dividends associated with the drama industry?
I mean,
on a lighter note.
Right.
So are there good economic dividends at the end of the day?
Initially, there aren't. In the beginning, it's a huge risk.
Struggle,
it's a huge risk. It's a huge gamble that you're doing with your life. And my parents, alhamdulillah, they're very supportive. They support me throughout like the entire way. Shuru mein they were a little skeptical. They were like, "Kaise karoge? Kya hai? What are you gonna do?" But like, initially I was also like, "Achha, theek hai, kuch nahi karta." But then, I was like, "Nahi, man, yahi karna hai." And then once, I convinced them. I would secretly make little films and short films in the back and then show them. And once they were convinced, okay, he has the passion for it, he's doing it. Then they became my biggest supporters and my biggest pushers. Even when I don't want to do something, they're going to be like, nahi abhi, karo.
Right. Okay, that's wonderful. So, we wanted to you to give out the message to all of the young people out there, who are struggling when it comes to their art. So what is your message for them, how would you tell them to, recuperate with all of their passion, what is there, but, sometimes it does not pay when it comes to, their artistic value when it comes to that. So what is your message? Here's your camera, please. Go ahead.
This is going to sound like a huge cliche, but art has to come from within. That's what I feel. Make something when you truly feel strongly about it. Then you should make something and take breaks, take it easy. I mean, who am I to say? I'm still figuring it out, just like all of you. But yeah, take breaks, take it easy. But when the time comes to do the work, do the work.
Right. And I think that, the drama industry or the acting field is one such field, if you do not have the talent, you are eventually going to, wet out of it, because, it's solely based on merit. And if you do not have that sort of talent when it comes to that, and that talent stems from the passion, right, Jawad?
Exactly. Everything depends on merit. Not only acting or modeling or singing. Everything emanates from that very particular thing. So if you've got the passion for anything, whatever that is, whether it be acting, whether it be singing, whether it be writing, whether it be news anchoring, show hosting, or even you want to become a javelin thrower and want to earn a gold medal at the Commonwealth Games. So it's your passion. So it's very important to follow your heart. And naturally, as Shahryar was saying, that initially his parents were not supporting what he was pursuing, but later on they became his greatest supporters.
That's true.
So initially you have to struggle no matter whatever that field is.
Yes, once you accomplish whatever your dreams are, I think and you're something, then a lot of people are going to praise you. So a lot of people in your family which were once opposing you for not venturing into a particular field, they become your biggest
they'll come to take your autograph at the end of the day.
I think that's the case with Jawad too, right? How many people have came to take your autograph?
Well, actually I pursued whatever I wanted, and nobody opposed me right at the outset.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, because you have great, intellectual pursuits to accomplish, right?
Thank you very much.
You have already accomplished a lot of things when it comes to that.
Much.
So, with that, we have a wonderful, cross-pollination of ideas. So it's a time to say goodbye. We will come back again with another good episode, with another good guest, and with another good research. So until that time, it's a goodbye for now.
Goodbye.